The planet was dying. From space, it still looked beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. White clouds moved slowly across the sky. Green forests spread across the three main continents. It was a peaceful world, home to a peaceful people. They had lived on for over 10,000 years. They were a gentle species. Their bodies were tall and thin, with skin that could change colors based on their emotions. They had 4 fingers on each hand and large eyes that could see colors humans could not imagine. They had never fought a war. They had never needed weapons. They had spent their long history creating art, writing poetry, studying the stars, and building beautiful cities that seemed to grow from the ground like flowers. But now death had come too. Ambassador stood in the communications center of the capital city. Through the tall windows she could see the sky. It was full of ships, hundreds of ships. They belonged to the Dominion and they had come to take everything. They were not like they were conquerors. Their bodies were covered in hard shells like insects. They had sharp claws and mandibles that clicked when they spoke. For hundreds of years they had moved through the galaxy, attacking weak species, taking their planets and forcing the survivors into slavery. They were cruel. They were powerful. And now they wanted. "How long do we have?" asked. Her skin was gray with fear. Her aide, a young male named, looked at his screens. "They have not attacked yet. They are waiting. They want us to surrender. And if we do not surrender..." Skin turned darker. "Then they will destroy our cities one by one until we do, or until there is nothing left to surrender." Closed her eyes. They had no army. They had no warships. They had small defense systems that could push away asteroids, but those would be useless against the fleet. Her people were artists and scholars. They did not know how to fight. They did not want to know how to fight. But they also did not want to become slaves. "We must ask for help," she said. Shook his head. "We already tried. The Galactic Compact received our message. 47 species heard our call." He paused. 46 have refused to help. They say they cannot risk war with the... Felt something cold in her chest. She had expected this. They were careful. They only attacked species that could not fight back. They never touched the powerful civilizations. So the powerful civilizations looked away when they came for the weak. It was easier that way. Safer. "You said 46 refused," she said slowly. "What about the 47th? Skin flickered with an emotion could not read. "The 47th has not answered yet. But Ambassador, I do not think we want their help." "Why not?" He touched his screen, and information appeared in the air between them. Read it, and her large eyes grew wider. The species was called human. They came from a planet called Earth. The Galactic Database had a warning attached to their file, Class 12 DATHWRLD. Do not approach. Had heard of they were planets where everything was dangerous. The gravity was too strong. The atmosphere was full of poison. The weather was violent and unpredictable. Dangerous animals lived everywhere. Most intelligent species never developed on such worlds. The conditions were too harsh. Life was too difficult. But somehow humans had survived. She read more. Earth had gravity that was crushing by galactic standards. The atmosphere contained a highly reactive gas called oxygen that would burn the lungs of most species. The planet experienced extreme temperatures, violent storms, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. It was covered in predators. Even the smallest creatures could carry deadly diseases. And the humans had not just survived, they had thrived. They had built civilizations. They had gone to space. They had spread to other worlds. But they were also violent. Their history was filled with wars. They had fought each other for thousands of years before they finally united. Some galactic scholars believed that humans were simply a more advanced form of predator. Others thought they were monsters wearing the mask of civilization. "They are dangerous," said. "Even if they help us, they might be worse than the..." Thought about this. She thought about the ships in the sky. She thought about her people who had never hurt anyone, facing slavery or death. She thought about the 46 civilizations that had heard their cry for help and chosen to do nothing. "Send the message," she said. "Send it to the humans." "Ambassador." "Send it. If we must choose between two dangers, I will choose the one that might save us." Hesitated, then turned to the communication array. His fingers moved across the controls. The message went out into space, traveling faster than light, reaching across the vast darkness toward a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Then they waited. Hours passed. The ships moved closer. A message came from the commander demanding surrender. Did not answer. She stood at the window, watching the sky, waiting for something she was not sure would come. Then finally, the communication array made a sound. Rushed to check it. His skin went through several colors very quickly. "Ambassador," he said, his voice shaking, "we have a response from Earth." "What does it say?" He read the message aloud. It was only 4 words. "Hold on, we're coming." Felt something strange. It took her a moment to recognize it. It was hope. "How soon?" she asked. "Check the data." Their fleet left immediately. They did not wait for orders. They did not ask questions. They just left. Estimated arrival time is 16 standard hours. Will they be in time? I do not know. They could attack at any moment. Looked back at the sky. The ships hung there like dark clouds, waiting to bring destruction. But somewhere beyond them, somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, help was coming. She did not know what the humans would be like. She did not know if they could defeat the. She did not even know if they could be trusted. But they had done something that no one else in the galaxy had done. They had answered. In all her years as a diplomat had learned one truth about the universe. When someone was in trouble, most people looked away. It was easier to pretend you did not see. It was safer to stay out of danger. The strong protected themselves, and the weak suffered. But someone had answered. She touched the window with her 4-fingered hand. "Hold on," she whispered to her people, to her planet, to everyone who was afraid. "Help is coming." Outside, the ships continued their slow approach. They did not know what was coming. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never been challenged. They believed they were the greatest predators in this part of the galaxy. They had never met a. In 16 hours, they would learn a lesson that would echo across the stars. They would learn that there was a species that came from a world of fire and poison, a world that killed the weak and made the survivors strong. They would learn that this species did not ignore cries for help. They would learn that when humans made a promise, they kept it. And they would learn, too late, what it meant to face the fury of Earth. But for now, simply waited, watching the sky, holding onto 4 simple words like a light in the darkness. "Hold on, we're coming." The darkness of space tore open, and the humans arrived. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the battleship Unyielding Dawn. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that showed no fear. His hair was cut short, and there were small scars on his hands from years of service. He had fought in 3 wars before this one. He had seen friends die. He had buried soldiers under foreign skies, but he had never turned away from a fight that mattered. Around his ship, 36 other vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They appeared in perfect formation, like a fist made of steel and fire. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and support ships. Not the largest fleet humanity had ever built, but every ship was a weapon. Every crew member was trained on a world that killed the weak. Report said. Lieutenant sat at the tactical station. She was younger than the captain, with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had graduated at the top of her class at the academy. This was her first real battle, but her voice was steady. "Captain, I am counting approximately 200 vessels. They have formed a blockade around the 3rd planet. The planet matches the description of." She paused. "Sir, they outnumber us almost 6-1. Nodded slowly. He had expected worse. "What about the planet? Any signs of attack?" "Negative. They have not fired on the surface. It appears they are waiting for surrender. Good, that gives us time. Another officer spoke up. His name was Minu and he was the communications officer. Captain, they are trying to contact us. They want to know our intentions. Tell them to stay calm. Tell them help has arrived. Looked at the ships were visible now, dark shapes against the stars. They looked like insects, all sharp angles and hard shells. And open a channel to the command ship. Sir, Minu looked surprised. You want to talk to them? I want them to know who we are. I want them to have a chance to leave. His voice was calm, but there was something hard underneath it. They will not take that chance, but I want them to have it. The flickered, a face appeared. It was a commander, larger than most of his species. His shell was decorated with markings that showed his rank. His mandibles clicked together as he looked at the human ship. Humans, they said. The translator made his voice sound flat and cold. You are far from your home. This system belongs to the Dominion now. These creatures called for help, but no one can help them. Leave now, and we will forget this insult to our territory. Did not smile. He did not frown. He simply looked at the commander the way a wolf might look at a dog. I am Captain Park of the United Earth Emergency Response Fleet. They sent out a distress call. We answered. We are not leaving. They made a sound that might have been laughter. You answered. Why, these creatures are nothing to you. They are weak. They are prey. This is the natural order of things. The strong take from the weak. You cannot change this. You are right about one thing, said. The strong do take from the weak. They are weak. They cannot fight you. They cannot defend themselves. He leaned forward slightly. But you made a mistake. You thought because they were weak, no one would protect them. You thought you could do whatever you wanted because no one would stop you. And who will stop us? You. The commander spread his arms wide. Look at your fleet, human. I have 200 ships. You have less than 40. You cannot win this fight. Let me tell you something about humans, said. His voice was quiet now, almost gentle. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. The air we breathe would poison most species. The gravity we live under would crush your bones. We share our planet with predators that have been hunting for millions of years. Everything on Earth wants to kill us. Everything. He paused, letting the words sink in. And we survived. We did not just survive. We conquered our world. We went to the stars. We built ships that can cross the galaxy. And we did it because we learned one lesson very early. The universe does not care about you. No one will save you. No one will protect you. You must fight for everything you have. The commander's mandibles clicked faster. Then you understand. You are predators like us. You know that the weak exist to serve the strong. No, shook his head. That is where you are wrong. We learned a different lesson. We learned that because no one saved us, we must save others. We learned that strength means nothing if you use it only for yourself. We learned that the measure of a species is not how it treats those who are equal to it, but how it treats those who are weaker. He stood up from his chair. They are weak, they cannot fight. They are artists and poets and dreamers. They have never hurt anyone, and you came to take everything from them because you could. His voice grew harder. Well, now you face us, and we are not weak. We are not peaceful. We come from a world of death, and we carry that death with us wherever we go. The commander was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, there was something new in his voice. It might have been doubt. You would die for strangers, for creatures you have never met. Yes. Why? Smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of something old and dangerous, something that had crawled out of the darkness of Earth and learned to walk among the stars. Because someone has to. Because if we do not, then no one will. Because every time a strong species destroys a weak one, the universe becomes a little darker, and we have seen enough darkness. He turned to his crew. End transmission. The commander's face disappeared from the screen. Looked at her captain. Sir, they are not retreating. They are forming battle lines. I did not expect them to retreat. Sat back down in his chair. He looked at the fleet around him. 37 ships, 4,000 souls, all of them ready to fight for people they had never met. "All ships," he said, and his voice went out to every vessel in the fleet. "This is Captain Park. We came here to answer a call for help. They have refused to leave. They think because they outnumber us they will win. They think because we are fighting for strangers we will not fight hard." He paused. "Show them how wrong they are. Show them what it means to face the children of Earth. Show them that when humans make a promise we keep it, no matter the cost." He looked at the enemy fleet one more time. "All weapons free. Let's teach these predators who the real apex species is." The unyielding Dawn's engines roared to life, and the fleet surged forward into battle. The battle began with fire. The human fleet hit the formation like a hammer hitting glass. Missiles flew across the darkness. Lasers cut through shields. Explosions bloomed in the void, bright flowers of destruction that died as quickly as they were born. Commander led the fighter squadrons from the carrier Crimson Phoenix. She was a small woman with steady hands and eyes that never seemed to blink during combat. She had been flying since she was 16 years old. The cockpit of a fighter was more comfortable to her than any home. "All squadrons, stay tight on me," she said into her communicator. "We punch through their screen and hit the carriers. Without carriers, they have no fighters. Without fighters, they have no eyes." 60 human fighters followed her into the chaos. They had more ships, more guns, more fighters, but they had never fought humans before. They did not know what they were facing. The first fighter came from the left. She pulled her ship into a spin that would have broken the bones of most galactic pilots. Human bodies could handle forces that would kill other species. This was the gift of Earth's gravity. This was what it meant to be a. She fired, the fighter exploded. "Splash one," she said calmly. "Keep moving, do not stop. A moving target is a living target." Around her the battle raged. Human ships weaved through enemy fire with movements that seemed impossible. They took hits that would have destroyed vessels built by softer species. They kept fighting. They kept flying. On the destroyer Hammer of Soul, Chief Engineer No worked in conditions that would have killed him on any other day. The engine room was on fire. Half the systems were offline. A piece of metal from an explosion had broken 2 of his ribs. He could feel them grinding against each other every time he breathed. He did not stop working. "I need more time," he shouted into his communicator. His hands moved across the damaged systems, pulling wires, welding connections, forcing the broken machinery to work through sheer willpower. "We do not have more time," the captain screamed back. "The shields are failing. If we do not have power in 30 seconds, we are dead." "Then give me 30 seconds. We have 20 at most." Gritted his teeth. The pain in his chest was like fire. His vision was starting to blur. But he had served on Earth ships his whole life. He had been trained on a world where giving up meant death, where the only option was to keep going, no matter how much it hurt. "Then I will do it in 18, he said. He dove back into the machinery. His hands moved faster than thought. He bypassed damaged systems. He rerouted power through backup conduits. He did things that engineers said were impossible because no one had told him he could not do them. 17 seconds later, the lights came back on. The shields flickered to life. The Hammer of Soul's weapons began to fire again. In the medical bay of the unyielding Dawn, Dr. Shin moved through rows of wounded soldiers. Blood covered her hands. Screams filled the air. The smell of burned flesh was everywhere. She did not panic, she did not cry, she worked. A young soldier grabbed her arm. He was barely 20 years old. Part of his face was burned, and his eyes were wide with terror. "Are we going to die?" he asked. "Doctor, are we going to die?" Looked at him. She thought about lying. She thought about telling him everything would be fine. But humans did not survive on Earth by lying to themselves. They survived by facing the truth and fighting anyway. Some of us might, she said honestly, but we are going to win, and the ones who die will not die for nothing. Do you understand? The soldier stared at her, then slowly he nodded. Good, she injected him with painkillers. Now rest, let us do the fighting. Outside, the battle continued. They were learning things they did not want to know. They learned that human ships were built stronger than anything they had faced. Their weapons hit human shields and did damage, but not enough damage. Human shields held longer. Human armor was thicker. Human ships kept fighting even when they should have been destroyed. They learned that human pilots were insane by galactic standards. They flew in ways that should have killed them. They took risks that no sane species would take, and somehow, impossibly, they survived. They learned that humans did not retreat. A ship would be damaged and fall back, preserving itself for future battles. A human ship would be damaged and charge forward, trying to take as many enemies as possible with it. This was not logical. This was not sane, but it was terrifying. The commander watched his fleet begin to break. He had started with 200 ships. Now he had 140, then 120, then 100. This is impossible, he said. They are outnumbered. They should have been destroyed in the first hour. His officers had no answer. They had never seen anything like this. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose, like death was just another enemy to be defeated, like the universe itself could not make them stop. On the bridge of the unyielding dawn, Captain watched the battle turn. His fleet had lost 8 ships, 8 crews, hundreds of lives, but they were breaking. Their formation was falling apart. Their commanders were panicking. Sir, Lieutenant said. Her voice was tired but proud. The flagship is trying to retreat. Shook his head. No, they came here to enslave innocent people. They do not get to run away. What are your orders? He looked at the commander's ship was turning, trying to escape the battle it had started, running from the consequences of its cruelty. All ships that can still fight, focus on the flagship. Do not let them escape. The galaxy needs to see what happens when you prey on the innocent. The human fleet moved as one. Damaged ships limped forward. Fighters formed up for one final attack. Everyone who could still fight turned toward the commander's vessel. Commander led the final assault. Her fighter was damaged. One of her engines was failing. She had been flying for 3 hours without rest, but she did not stop. For Earth, she said quietly. For everyone who ever called for help and was ignored. She fired. The flagship's shields collapsed. A dozen human missiles hit it at once. The great ship broke apart, pieces flying into the darkness of space. The commander died without ever understanding what had happened, without ever understanding why anyone would fight so hard for strangers. Around, the remaining ships began to surrender. The battle was over. The humans had won. But as looked at the wreckage floating in space, at the list of casualties appearing on his screen, he knew that victory had a price. 11 ships destroyed, 6 more badly damaged, over 4,000 humans who would never see Earth again. They had saved, they had answered the call. Now they had to live with what it had cost them. The silence after battle was always the hardest part. Captain Park stood in the cargo bay of the unyielding dawn. The space was cold and quiet. The lights were dim, and in front of him, in perfect rows, were coffins. 4,217 coffins. Each one was covered with the flag of United Earth, blue and green and white, the colors of the planet that had given birth to humanity, the planet that had made them strong enough to cross the stars, the planet they would never see again. Walked between the rows slowly. He read the names on each coffin. He did not know all of them. That was the hardest part. He was their captain and he did not know all their names. There were too many. Private, 22 years old. She had joined the fleet to pay for medical school. She wanted to be a doctor. Now she would never heal anyone. Lieutenant, 31 years old. He had a wife and 2 children on Earth, would have to write a letter to his family. What could he possibly say? Your husband died saving aliens you will never meet. He died because someone had to. Ensign Moon, 19 years old. She had been on her first mission, her first battle, her last. The names went on and on. Young and old, men and women, people with families, with dreams, with lives that had been cut short. They had come to because someone called for help. They had died because they answered. Stopped at one coffin. The name on it was O. He had been his friend for 20 years. They had served together on 5 different ships. They had saved each other's lives more times than could count. Had always said he wanted to retire to a small farm on Mars. He wanted to grow vegetables and watch the sunset over the Red Mountains. Now he would never see any sunset again. "I'm sorry," said quietly. "I'm sorry I could not save you." He knew would not have blamed him, had known the risks when he joined the fleet. They all knew. Every human who put on the uniform understood that they might not come home. That was the price of being the ones who answered. But knowing this did not make it hurt less. The door to the cargo bay opened. Lieutenant stepped inside. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes and her uniform was wrinkled. She had been awake for almost 40 hours. "Captain," she said softly, "the ambassador is here. She is requesting permission to come aboard." Did not turn around. Granted. A few minutes later, Ambassador entered the cargo bay. She was not alone. A group of followed her. When they saw the coffins, they stopped. Skin changed colors rapidly. Gray for grief, blue for shame, white for something did not recognize. She stood there for a long moment, unable to speak. "So many," she finally said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "So many died for us." Turned to face her. 4,217. "I do not understand." His large eyes were wet with tears. "We are strangers to you. We have never met before. We have nothing to offer you. Why did you come? Why did you fight? Why did you?" She gestured at the coffins. "Why did you let them die for us?" Thought about this question. He had been thinking about it for hours. He had been thinking about it his whole life. "Do you know what Earth was like when we first looked at the stars?" he asked. Shook her head. "It was hard. Everything was trying to kill us. The weather, the animals, disease, starvation. We had nothing. No one came to help us. No one answered when we called. We had to save ourselves or we would have died." He looked at the coffins around him. "And we did save ourselves. We survived. We grew stronger. We went to the stars. But we never forgot what it was like to be weak. We never forgot what it was like to call for help and hear only silence." He turned back to, "When your signal reached Earth, do you know what people did? They did not have a meeting. They did not discuss politics or costs or benefits. They just went. The fleet was moving before anyone gave an order, because every human knows what it is like to be afraid and alone. Every human knows what it is like to need help that never comes." He pointed at the coffins. These people knew they might die. They knew they were outnumbered. They knew they had nothing to give them in return, and they came anyway, because someone had to. Because if no one answers when the weak call for help, then what is the point of being strong? Was crying now. The tears looked like liquid silver on her skin. "How can we ever repay you? How can we ever make this right?" Shook his head. "There is no debt. We do not save people because we want payment. We save people because it is right." He paused. "But if you want to honor their sacrifice, there is one thing you can do." "Anything." "The next time someone calls for help, answer. It does not matter if they are strangers. It does not matter if you have nothing to gain. When someone is afraid and alone and calling into the darkness, be the voice that answers. That is how you honor the dead. You become the help that others need." Looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something no had ever done before. She placed her hand over her heart, the human gesture of respect. "We will remember," she said. We will teach our children, we will write it in our histories and carve it into our monuments. The humans came, they fought for us, they died for us, and they asked for nothing in return. She looked at the coffins one more time. I do not know if there are gods, she said softly. But if there are, I hope they are kind to these souls. I hope they know that these people were heroes. Nodded, they knew the risks, they made their choice, and I do not think any of them would change that choice even now. He turned to, Lieutenant, begin preparations for the journey home. We have a lot of letters to write, a lot of families to visit. Saluted, yes, Captain. Az and her delegation left the cargo bay, took one more look at the coffins, at the flag of Earth covering each one, at the names of 4,000 people who had given everything so that strangers could live. Rest well, he said quietly, you earned it. Then he turned and walked out of the cargo bay, ready to face the hardest part of being a captain, ready to tell families that their loved ones were never coming home, ready to carry the weight of sacrifice for the rest of his life. Because that was the price of being human. That was the price of being the ones who answered. And it was a price they would pay, again and again, for as long as the stars needed guardians. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. On space stations and colony worlds, in trading posts and diplomatic halls, everyone heard the story. The had called for help. 46 species had refused, and then the humans came. At first, no one believed it. The humans were too few, there were too many, it should have been impossible, but the evidence was clear. The fleet was destroyed, they were free, and the humans had lost nearly a third of their force doing it. Why? This was the question that echoed through every conversation, every news report, every late-night discussion in bars across the spiral arm. Why would they do this? What did they gain? The answer was always the same. Nothing. They gained nothing. They fought and died for strangers, and they asked for nothing in return. This confused the galaxy. Most species understood power. They understood trade and politics and the careful balance of giving and taking. But this was different. This was something that did not fit into their understanding of how the universe worked. The Dominion collapsed within one standard year. For centuries, they had ruled through fear. They attacked the weak because the weak could not fight back. They enslaved entire species because no one would stop them. But after, everything changed. The species that they had conquered began to rise up. They looked at what the humans had done, and they found courage they did not know they had. If the humans could defeat then maybe they were not as powerful as they seemed. Maybe the predators could be beaten. One by one, the slave worlds rebelled. They, weakened by their defeat could not stop them. Their empire crumbled like a before the tide. The Galactic Compact held an emergency meeting. For the first time in centuries, they discussed real change, real reform, new laws that would protect weak species from predators like new agreements that would require members to answer calls for help. Not everyone agreed. Some species still believed that the strong should rule and the weak should suffer. But the vote passed, because after, anyone who argued against protecting the innocent had to answer one question. Why did 46 species refuse to help, while the humans did not? No one had a good answer. On Earth, monuments were built to the fallen. In the capital city of United Earth, a great wall was constructed. It was made of black stone, polished so smooth that it reflected the sky. On this wall, carved in letters of gold, were the names of every human who died 4,217 names, each one representing a life given so that strangers could live. People came from all over Earth to see the wall. They brought flowers, they brought letters, they stood in silence and read the names. Some cried. Some simply touched the stone, feeling the weight of sacrifice under their fingers. Captain Park visited the wall on the first anniversary of the battle. He was retired now. The war had taken something from him that he could not get back, but he still came to pay his respects. He found Commander there, standing in front of a section of names. Her old squadron, the pilots who had followed her into the heart of the formation. Half of them had not come home. "Do you ever wonder if it was worth it?" asked without turning around. Stood beside her every day. "And what do you think?" He looked at the names on the wall. Moon, oh, so many names, so many lives. "I think about the children who are alive because of what we did. I think about the slaves who are free because they are gone. I think about every species that will be protected because the galaxy finally understands that someone will answer when they call." He paused. "And I think that if I could go back and do it again, I would, even knowing the cost." Nodded slowly. "Me too." They stood in silence for a long time, remembering the dead. 5 years after the battle, began teaching at the academy. The academy had changed. It was no longer just for humans. Students walked the halls now, learning from the who had saved their planet. Other species came too, species that wanted to understand how humans thought, how they fought, how they could give so much for strangers. Taught a course on military history, but really he taught about sacrifice. "The galaxy thought they understood us," he would tell his students on the first day of every semester. "They read about our wars, our violence, our endless capacity for destruction. They thought we were dangerous, and they were right." He would pause then, letting the words settle. The classroom was always silent. "But they missed the most important thing about humans. Yes, we are dangerous. Yes, we are violent. Yes, we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. But that same world taught us something else." He would look at his students, human and a dozen other species now, all sitting together, all learning from the Earth. "Taught us that survival means nothing if you survive alone. It taught us to protect the weak, to fight for the helpless, to rage against injustice even when it costs us everything. The saw predators when they looked at us. They were wrong." His voice would grow quiet, but it filled the room like a heartbeat. "We are guardians, and the stars will never forget it." In the history books, the battle of became a turning point, not just but for the entire galaxy. It was the moment when everything changed, when one species showed everyone else what it truly meant to be strong. They built their own monument to the fallen humans. It stood in the center of their capital city, a tower of crystal that caught the light of their sun and scattered it across the streets like diamonds. At its base was a simple inscription in both script and Earth standard. "They came because we called. They died so we could live. They asked for nothing in return. Remember them." And the galaxy did remember. Years passed, decades, centuries. The story of was told and retold, passed from parents to children, written in books, taught in schools across 1,000 worlds. The details changed sometimes. The numbers grew larger. The battles became more dramatic, but the core of the story stayed the same. Once there was a species that called for help. No one answered, no one except the humans. And when the humans came, they brought with them the fury of the courage of warriors and the compassion of guardians. They fought and died for strangers. They changed the galaxy forever. And though the stars were vast and cold and indifferent, they remembered. They always remembered. Because that was what it meant to be human, to stand in the darkness and be the light, to hear the cries of the innocent and answer with everything you had, to know that you might die and to go anyway because someone had to. The universe was full of predators, full of species that took what they wanted and left the weak to suffer. But the universe also had guardians now, who chose to protect instead of destroy, who chose to save instead of conquer. And for every call for help that went out into the darkness, there would always be someone ready to answer. Always. The stars remembered, and they always would.